Hey, it's your boy Max, and today let's talk about one of the most important phases of writing a blog post, which is topic research. So, let's see how it's different from keyword research and why some people might get the two confused, and also how to properly do this, how to get a really deep understanding of the topic you're writing on, even if you're not necessarily an expert on it and maybe you don't have a lot of knowledge on it. And finally, let's see how we can always add value to our blogging, to our blog posts, so that our audience can always find something useful in there and not just like regurgitate something we've read online, some resources we've found and we just like copy and paste and maybe like tweak and edit a few things. That's not gonna cut it anymore in 2021 and beyond. We gotta go a step above that, a step beyond, and let's see exactly how to do this. So first, let's see how is topic research different from keyword research. So they do have like some common points, some commonalities, but most of the time, keyword research is this like technical process that we usually use tools to find out the search volume for a keyword and maybe some like related keywords to that main keyword that we know they're gonna help us rank higher or we assume, and this was kind of true. This was the dominant paradigm in SEO for pretty much a long time, for maybe even like 2 decades, but it's slowly dying out. It's on its way out, and I think it's in its sunset years, mostly because search engines, Google, other search engines are starting to get a lot smarter. They understand language much better than before, so they can pretty much evaluate our blog and our content in an easier way, and they can find like the synonyms and maybe even like some hidden meanings, some dual meanings. The way humans naturally talk, the way we communicate is a bit more understandable for search algorithms, and that's why we don't really need to obsess with keywords anymore. As long as we have the topic, as long as our content is on point, right, aiming at the topic and hitting the nail right on the head, we will see much better results. We will get content that's much more natural, that sounds more similar to the way we talk, and it's gonna be easier to produce in the long run because, well, it's just more conversational. There's no need for this like weird artificial technicalities that we like inject after we finish our initial draft, stuff like that. We don't have to do that anymore. So that's why topic research is the way forward. This is the future, I believe. And this is my entire process. I'm gonna lay out everything that I do when I'm not exactly confident in my expertise on the topic. So I wanna make sure that I'm absolutely one of the most educated people on what I'm talking about in all of my blog posts. So if you kind of know something about a topic, but you can't really be confident that you can just sit down and type out an article like 3,000 words without looking at other external references and sources, then you will want to do a deep, thorough topic research. And I suggest three main places to do this. There are more, obviously, there's a lot more, and if you do have some suggestions, let me know in the comments. I love to hear about these things, but I believe that these three offer the best balance between speed, efficiency, precision, and authority. So let's start with YouTube, which is probably the obvious place for most of you guys, but I believe that a lot of you can learn a few tips and tricks along the way that maybe you haven't thought of before. So honestly, YouTube is probably not the first and the best place to do your research, but it's still pretty good because there's a lot of content on a lot of different topics, and you can get a really quick and dirty perspective on the topic and be fairly certain that you can relay some value to it. You can extract some value for your audience from that research. So the way I usually do things, the way I want to see this happen is that I'm going to type my topic in the search bar, and I'm always aiming to find at least three different types of videos. So number one, I'm always looking to find a more recent video from a pretty big channel, let's say, and that has as much attention to it as possible, but freshness is more important. So a lot of views, a lot of likes, that's great, but I want to see like the latest, let's say the latest best video on the topic. Then I also want to see like one older video, one more maybe evergreen video, also preferably from a bigger channel. And that's gonna give you a historic perspective. So how things have changed, what were they like before, and how are they now, how they progressed. All of that timeline is gonna be revealed to you, and I found it to be extremely valuable for gaining like a deeper understanding of a lot of things going on in your industry and how they evolve and how they will turn out in the end. This is great. And finally, I always seek to find at least one controversial video. So I want to see like that those like and dislikes bar like pretty evened out. I want to see a lot of comments there, a lot of replies to the comments, reactions to the comments, because this is also a great way to gain understanding of what's hot in the industry, what's maybe triggering people, what's actually worth discussing, because these hot topics are usually going to be surrounded by some controversy. So I try to find these three types of videos. Obviously, the more you watch, the better, and you also want to see like the channels are relevant, that there's a lot of attention, but also that they have a lot of other videos related to this topic, and that way you know that you're in the right place for your research. Now, here's my 2 cents of how I actually implement this process and how I believe is the best way to spend your time actually doing research instead of just like watching YouTube, or maybe like listening to the video with like half of your brain and the other half is like doing something else or thinking about it. So the most important thing I believe is to actually watch the video, focus on the people that are trying to convey the information, because as humans we learn with all of our senses. It's not just about it's not just about listening. It helps a lot when you also see the person, how they explain their gestures, their body movements, because I believe that strongly impacts the way we remember and the way we learn in the end. Also, some people are great teachers, they're great educators, and they can even take this a step further. They know how to explain things with their body and their arms and their gestures. I mean, maybe even like got some of that going on. I don't even know, but I believe it's really useful to see the natural way content is explained on video, and that's why I prefer YouTube to say like podcast or just audio and listening to the material. Also, dig into the comment section as much as possible. You will find gold there. I mean, the amount of useful insights or funny stuff or like original content I've noticed in the comment sections of YouTube is just like insane. I mean, obviously you're gonna find, we all know what's hiding down there, but avoid like the negativity and avoid like all the me too content, like check out, yeah, this is a great video, but check out my video, it's better, or the other common stuff like, oh, if you're watching in 2021 you must be like so awesome, and that's like obviously irrelevant for your research. I suggest watching the videos at a faster speed. I found that watching it times 175 for me, it's not really an issue. I believe that's gonna be the case for most native speakers, and you will get the information pretty much twice as fast without losing much of the meaning in the process. So I do recommend that if you can do it. If not, it's fine. Watch the videos at whatever speed works for you, but be aware that this is an option, and you may be surprised by how fast you can actually listen and learn. And finally, and probably most importantly, take notes. I use the pen and paper all the time, or maybe you can like split the windows into two, like maybe have your browser and the one half of your screen and the other half can be like the note-taking app or the notepad, or like I don't know, whatever you use, like another browser window, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, you just need to take notes and you will use them. This is like basically why you do this in the first place. You gotta learn, you wanna get the information, right? And I try not to stop the videos because I found that it kind of interrupts the process, but if you have to do it, that's fine as well. When you're done, you can link to the videos in your blog post from your blog post as sources. This is gonna be helpful for your audience as well. It's gonna give you some credibility and it's gonna show you've actually went ahead and done the research. Number two, one of my favorite places online, Quora. So I even recommend using Quora as like a regular user because it's such a great app. But it's especially good for research because at the moment I believe Quora is like probably the best online discussion forum in the world, because I'm not even sure like how they can manage to maintain such a high level of quality, and like the everything's kind of decent over there. There's an aura of like professionalism, and people are just like really cool over there. They're just sharing knowledge, and there's not a lot of spamming and trolling going on. I mean, obviously it's a publicly available forum, so there is gonna be some of that, but in relation to what I've seen like in other places, like I don't know, some other old school forums or maybe Reddit at times, it's just like hate wars and flame wars and stuff like that. Quora is kind of more civilized for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I'm so happy because I'm so happy that's the case. And you will often see that these like ginormous topic experts are devoting their time and their best writing, their best material to Quora. They're pretty much writing all the time, and you will even find like professors, doctors, PhDs writing there like on topics that they're absolute experts in. My favorite thing about Quora is that you can actually verify that the person writing on the topic has some expertise on it. I mean, it's not gonna be like a diploma from a college or anything, but if you see the person having at least like 50 answers on a topic, you can be fairly certain that they're devoted, they're at least somewhat of an expert, and maybe they have some official credentials, some education, some job experience, which further increases their trust and credibility. Okay, so cool Quora tip number one is usually these trusted domain experts on Quora will cite their sources either like as links as they go along and read the content, or in the footnote section. And I usually like to use these links as my own resources in my blog post as well. Maybe you're aware that citing high authority resources in your blogs helps SEO. That's always the case. So this is kind of like using the same resources. That's great for your blog, and you're also gaining some credibility as well. And Quora tip number two: once you're done writing the article, you can actually post the article as an answer to the original Quora question you saw as well. So this is gonna help with your SEO as well. I mean, it's not gonna bring a ton of traffic, especially if there's already a lot of answers by highly trusted experts in the field on Quora, but it will provide you with one quick backlink, and it will gain you some exposure to people that are obviously interested in the topic. And research place number three: this is the big league, this is the big guns, and this is probably the best way to research a topic for blogging and SEO purposes. That's of course by using Google Scholar. So if you're not familiar with Google Scholar, Google Scholar, you will find it. It's a search engine for basically scientific and scholarly literature, so you can find a ton of research papers, studies, like official research from these like highly trusted authoritative institutions like universities. There's always like doctors and PhDs and professors publishing like high profile studies there. And if you can manage to find a resource that's related to your topic, you've hit pay dirt. I mean, this is amazing. As we mentioned before, this is great to cite as a source in your blog post, and especially if that's like a very trusted domain, like a .edu domain, or like another very, very high authority domain, that's gonna work wonders for your SEO, and your audience is gonna love you for it. It shows that you've actually done the research for them. Now, there are a few problems with Google Scholar. I've noticed three main issues with Google Scholar and using the results you find there as research sources. So, number one, this will take more time on average because Usually what you will find is these like research papers that often use scientific language. Maybe they use like domain specific language a bit. They often rely on a lot of statistics, so it does require a bit more mental involvement to even understand like what the research paper is about, and even to see if that fits into the into the point you're trying to make on your blog. Or maybe often you're gonna find that it's not even related at all, or maybe even it disproves your point. So it will take a bit more research and a bit more understanding and involvement on your part to see if that resource will fit your blog post. Number two, some of the materials there are gonna be behind a paywall. This is usually the case for more high profile research because those papers are hard to produce, and these institutions have to monetize their efforts somehow. So you may find kind of highly expensive fees. I've even seen like monthly fees of $500 just to access some research papers, which maybe it's a good use case in some scenarios, but honestly, I've never done that before. I don't believe you have to do that. You don't have to pay like very high fees to access these papers, this information. I usually choose to skip it. Maybe if you believe it's gonna bring a lot of value to your audience, maybe it might be worth the fee. Number three, and probably most critical when it comes to Google Scholar, is the fact that you will often not find any useful research for your topic. So there's tons and tons of research. Obviously, scientists are always like doing their nerdy stuff, and they're producing a lot of research on a lot of topics, but some topics don't really have like a lot of science behind them. So if you're blogging on like health, dieting, nutrition, you will find thousands and thousands of papers on all sorts of like areas covering those topics. But if you're writing a blog post on like summer vacation destinations in France, you will probably not find any scientific materials at all. You can use like some of this clever blogging jujitsu that you can make it seem like the resource is related to the topic you're talking about, but it will not really help you with your particular research. It's only gonna be for using the link as a source, and that's not really that helpful, honestly. So this is kind of an issue. Oftentimes you will notice that there may not be research on your topic. Luckily we have Quora, luckily we have YouTube, and these three working all together, they're an amazing combination for producing highly researched, high quality content for your audience. Now hopefully it's not gonna be all research on your end. Your audience usually wants to see your own knowledge, your own experience, and that's why I usually recommend getting involved into a niche where you have at least somewhat of an experience, or at least a passion to learn, because otherwise it's gonna bore the hell out of you. You're gonna be tired of the topic in a matter of weeks. So I always recommend having at least some interest and some experience. But what happens if you don't have any experience about a certain, let's say, subtopic that you actually have to write a blog post about because it's gonna be really good for your blog? Well, there's actually two things you can always offer to your audience. Number one is your unique take on the matter. So we're all unique human beings. We'll have our own perspectives, and I believe each one of us has some valuable way of looking at things. That's why I believe that's the reason why we're all different, why we're not all the same. And your own unique perspective will be more valuable to your audience than you may think, especially if you show yourself in the light of a student, maybe not necessarily an expert yet, but at least someone who's willing to devote a lot of time and attention to learn about this topic. Your audience will definitely appreciate that. And number two is your presentation style. So this is even maybe getting more and more important. As we can see, it's becoming all about the presentation, and pretty much people don't even care about the sources and the knowledge anymore. They just want to see like something nicely packaged and nicely done and presented in like these shiny lights. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, but it is something that your audience will appreciate. So, if you can find unique ways to present the research that you learned about, funny ways, useful ways, better ways to educate someone, that's all gonna be super valuable to your audience. One good analogy to understand this better is like, I'm sure you all know some person that doesn't like math. They say like, "Oh, I hate math," and the reason for that is usually like they've had a really bad teacher while they were in high school maybe or something like that, and because of the way the information was taught to them, they actually believe they hate the subject matter when in fact they've just been like a victim of bad communications. So that's a clear case how presentation matters. It matters a lot, as some people will find your particular way of communication and presentation super valuable and they will admire you for it, they will reward you for it. So take the time to do proper research. You will create much better resources. Your audience will love you for it. Google will love you for it. They will reward you in the rankings, and you will end up with a much better blog in the long run. Done.